Hi, online art students. Well, here we are at the end of the semester, and I hope you've enjoyed the course. And I've certainly enjoyed looking at your beautiful artwork and helping you explore art and your own creativity and use your critical and creative thinking skills. As I've told you before, being that this is a 5 credit course, the expectation is that you would spend at least an hour on the course each weekday, because that's as much time as you would spend on the course if you were in the class person to person or face to face, like in school with me at St. Joseph High School. So, with that in mind, I have one last assignment for you, but it's designed to be a short assignment, or it's designed to be an assignment, a project that you could spend little time on or a lot of time on. Like it has that flexibility, I suppose. So in other words, you can take it as far as your creative urges, compel you to. But on the other hand, there's kind of a minimal effort or a minimal amount of time that you'll have to put in order to fulfill the requirements of the assignment. Okay, but I guess what I'm saying is it's kind of it'll it'll allow for some options, and so the idea is that if you do designate the time that you should be during this last full week of classes, then you'll easily get this assignment done. You'll easily complete it. It is our last full week of classes in this semester. The last day of classes is on January 18th. So I'm going to set the due date for this last studio project for Friday, this coming Friday. And I should make a note that January 18th will be the last day, or it is the last day of classes, and I have set the last day for you to submit any outstanding assignments on January 23rd, which is the Monday that follows the last day of classes, which is a Wednesday. Okay, and then after that, it'd be too late to submit anything because marks are being finalized, and that's it. The course is over, and your course mark is sent off to Alberta Ed. Okay, so if you've been keeping up, you'll easily finish this last studio project. And if you are a little bit behind, you still have some time to get caught up. And remember that if you pass the course, you get the full 5 credits. So I mean, I would like you to have a course mark that's robust. 80s, 90s, of course. But if you scrape by with like 50s, 60s, well, at least you still get the credits for the course, right? So, because I know that everybody has different circumstances and we're all busy. But anyway, I'm going to talk to you about this last studio project rather than having you just read about it. So, it's based on this piece of art, which is by one of my favorite contemporary artists named Sterling Hundley. I put his name there in case you want to research him and check out more of his artwork. And it's a drawing, as you can see, almost like something I might call a spot illustration, because it's really not set in a format box. There's really a very limited sense of composition. But that's actually one of the unique features about this piece of art of his, and I've made it one of the design challenges for you. And I'll explain more what I mean when the time comes. But what I want you to appreciate about this is that Sterling Hundley has taken a shape, a simple geometric shape, and in this case it's a parallelogram, and he has pulled an image from the shape. It almost looks like a Christ-like figure kneeling before somebody in distress. And I don't know, it's kind of timeless. Like it's hard to kind of get a sense of the setting or like the time period. Is this set back centuries ago, or is it modern, or fantasy? It's hard to say, but that's one of the intriguing things about this piece of art. And the title of it is interesting too. It's actually titled Bullet Train. and which kind of makes me think of like that's the title of a recent Brad Pitt movie, action movie. So I don't know if it has something to do with that, but I haven't seen the movie. But I don't know, interesting title. But what I especially love about it is how Sterling Hunley has used the shape, the parallelogram, to develop the concept. So concept, when we talk about a concept in art, it's like the idea behind the art, and that could be like the message that the artwork is conveying, the statement the artist is making, or it could pertain more to like the design elements within the artwork. So I think in this case it pertains a lot to when I say that I am intrigued by this concept. It's more about the design, like the idea of taking a shape and then like extracting an image from the shape, or like merging the image of the Jesus like man with the shape, and then building the rest of the drawing from that union of the first image and the shape. And by when I say first image, I'm referring to like the Jesus type character, and then the second image would be more like the man who's laying on the ground. Looks like he's laying on the ground. Okay, so that's the challenge that I have for you, is to do the same thing, is to start with some kind of a simple geometric shape and then pull an image from it. And so that's challenge number one. You've got a basic geometric shape, and you can treat it like a silhouette, like a solid shape where it's filled in all with the one value. Like in this case, it's black, so it's very dark. It's a very dark value. And then you pull your imagery from that shape, or you merge it with that shape, and kind of you're using the contour of the shape to create the image, right? Because in this case, the shape of the parallelogram helps to suggest the torso of the man that I'm saying is resembling Jesus. And then it's really interesting how Sterling Hunley merged the man's beard and his torso kind of with the black shape, and we just basically see his hands just sort of floating or hovering in amongst that black shape, and then also the suggestion of a little bit more of clothing, I guess is what that is, that shape above his hands. But again, that's just part of the really creative design of this drawing. But then the rest of the drawing, notice, is quite realistic. So that's something that you should keep in mind too, is what will your treatment of subject matter be? Will you work realistically or abstractly or somewhere in between? So that's the first challenge. Now, the second challenge might be even more difficult, is to base the artwork on a social concern, topic, or issue. So social concern, topic, or issue, like something like it could be like homelessness or unemployment or drug addiction, or like overpopulation, or like the litter, like the sort of well-being of the environment where we live. If you I kind of think about our school parking lots that sometimes have a lot of litter in them. Okay, or it could be like, I don't know, domestic abuse or family dynamics that are sometimes negative. Okay, so a social concern, topic, or issue could go more globally, I suppose, if you want to, like something like, we've lived through, or we're still living through a pandemic. So like the idea of, you know, illness that seems to sort of travel the globe these days because of how mobile humans are and transient we are. Okay, so you're going to have to identify a social concern, topic, or issue, and then use that to come up with your imagery. So in other words, like what will be in your artwork. So yeah, you're going to start with the shape. That's the first challenge, and then pull imagery from the shape. But what imagery will you pull? So what I'm saying is that imagery should pertain to a social concern, topic, or issue. Third challenge. You most likely will have more than one positive shape. And so that I have this challenge for you to create unity within this spot illustration by combining the two or more images or positive shapes. So in this case, Sterling Hundley has two. He's got two people, and they are overlapping, so they're touching. So basically, our brain perceives those two people as being one shape. And that includes, I suppose, the parallelogram, because the parallelogram is helping to make the first man, the Jesus-like man. And then the second man, who looks injured or maybe dead, is overlapping the Jesus-like man. So it's all basically one shape. So that's what you have to do too. You see, that's why we're not worried about a format box, because everything will be connected, because it'll be touching. So you shouldn't have any isolated free-floating parts to the drawing, to the composition. Challenge 4, well, basically it's just to make use of the elements of art. And so there's so many drawing outcomes in your program of studies. And so basically this is just another opportunity for me to assess your drawing skills. So your fourth challenge is to demonstrate excellent drawing skills, but that also, and design skills too. So that means things like, and I have a list of them here, you can see, using interesting shape and expressive contour. So like Sterling Hundley has used some really beautiful contour here. Like, just notice the contours. I'll grab my mouse here. Look at these expressive contours along the man's leg and around his knee and up his quad. Contour refers to the edge quality of a shape. So look at how these contours vary, and then all these beautiful dips and curves along the fabric, and then back again along the man's hips and waist and up his lats, under his armpits and along his arms. So such nice shape variety. So you should also be aware of the contour of your shapes and use interesting shapes. Some shapes are more interesting than others. These shapes are interesting because they have variety. Like we have, like the man's ankles are thinner than his calves, and then his torso is a little bit bigger than his legs, and the Jesus-like character has like this shawl that's combined with his body, which is interesting. So develop interesting shape. Control proportion, that means to be aware of your style. So like if you're going to work realistically, then make sure you are aware of accurate proportions, how big one part of a shape is compared to the other, and things like angles. Or if you're working abstractly, then use clever abstractions, exaggerate proportions, like shrink things, enlarge things, elongate parts. Manipulate perspective means to like consider perspective, and maybe you want to challenge yourself to use an interesting viewpoint. Like in this Sterling Hundley example, the viewpoint of the man that is laying on the ground is very interesting. We're kind of seeing him from a front sort of top-down view. Use value to differentiate shape, model, form, and suggest light. So this is like kind of a simpler drawing in terms of value, but you should still try to use a really dark value. So that means maybe you'll color in the shape like Sterling Hundley did. In fact, I would recommend that. Treat the shape as a silhouette. But then what other parts of your imagery will be really black too, really dark? And then if you look carefully at that, like the shawl that the Jesus figure seems to be wearing, we could consider that to be a middle value because it has some almost like grainy shading to it. So that's another thing is you're allowed to use whatever drawing media you want. So maybe you can make clever use of the drawing media to create various values. And then if you're working on white paper, which you most likely will be, then if you just leave parts of the paper of the drawing white, well, then that will function as your lightest value. So I guess you could say this is kind of a pen and ink example. You don't have to work in pen and ink. It could be pencil, it could be marker, colored pencil. But yeah, this one just happens to be pen and ink, and it kind of works well in this case, just given the concept and the slightly abstract approach to this drawing. And then add texture for variety and expression. So, like, again, going back to this example, there's kind of a texture in that shawl that the Jesus figure seems to have, because of the hands that were the Jesus figure's hands were shaded with some middle values. It created kind of a texture through almost like a pen and ink cross hatching. You see a little bit of texture maybe on the man's hair, the man who's on the ground's hair, and then like the fabric that he's wearing has a slightly different look to it, has a different volume, I guess, than his skin. So just be aware of texture and how you can create variety with maybe different forms of mark making. Even things like pattern can be a nice way to add texture. Okay, so refer to this video and like maybe pause the video on this slide and refer to these components that I'm asking you to really be aware of as you're working on this little piece of art. But that's it. So I know it's simple, but it's challenging because you not only do you have to base it on a social concern, topic, or issue, but you're also going to have to you have this design challenge of like starting with a shape and then extracting imagery from the shape, like here, like Sterling Hunley did. Okay, so that's why I think you'll need to work on this every day this week. And we still have class next week, so I'm going to set the due date for Friday. But if you don't get it done by Friday, you can always turn it in Monday or something like that. I am going to also include a short artist response to go along with this studio project. So this is your last studio project, but you'll have a short artist response to do. And so that will then officially be like your last actual assignment in this course. Okay, so that'll show up in Schoology soon enough. Reach out to me if you have questions or concerns. But other than that, do your best, have fun with this last studio project, and I look forward to seeing it. Take care.